Joining me now on set is our panel, Washington Post congressional reporter Marianna Sotomayor, former Maryland Democratic Congresswoman Donna Edwards. She is also an NBC News political analyst, and Republican strategist Brad Todd, who we should note is advising the David McCormick campaign in Pennsylvania, which we will talk about a little bit later on in this conversation. But we have to start with Veep stakes. Marianna, let me read to you what Chuck Todd wrote in his latest column about her search for a vice presidential nominee. This is an opportunity for Americans to get a glimpse at the type of Democrats she wants to run the country. This isn't just about picking a running mate. This is about setting a tone for the type of politics she intends to practice. Harris can tease out all of these things through a strategic use of the Veep stakes process. Chuck goes on to talk about the fact that she should hold meetings with people like Liz Cheney, with people in the business sector. What is your sense of how she's going to conduct this search?
Yeah, I mean, she absolutely should be going out there. I think it's so important. And Chuck makes this point very well, that in 2019, when she was running in her own primary, it was kind of hard to understand who she was, right?
Yeah.
You would ask her about any issue and she would be very dodgy. She was weighing, do I appeal to the liberal base? Do I try to appeal to more centrists, right? So this is not just a moment for her to try and find a VP who could potentially set the tone for 2028, future Democratic, or the Democratic Party in future elections. But I also think it's a moment for her to define herself. And it's something that we're all really going to be finding out, because there's been many points in her career where she has tried to shy away, for example, when she was AG and a prosecutor. Now she's fully embracing that. So that's something I'm watching for her is she going to be her authentic self? And does that appeal to voters? And who's going to balance that a little bit in her VP pick?
It is going to be fascinating. Donna, this is the most consequential decision she will make to date. What are you watching for, and who do you think she's going to pick, if you had to venture a guess?
Well, look, first of all, I think it is a consequential decision, but it's also one that she participated in, and she knows that. And she did that with President Biden, and she saw from him how consequential, in fact, it is. And okay, here's where my money is. My money is on Tim Walz, governor, two-term governor, successful governor of Minnesota. Former member of Congress, decorated Afghanistan veteran, brings a lot to the table. Roy Cooper, North Carolina, two-term governor again. So you're not going to run the risk of having a governor's seat open. And she served with Roy Cooper as an AG, so she really knows him and he knows her, and they like each other.
And having that personal relationship can be so critical. Brad, who do you think Republicans are most concerned about? Who would be the biggest threat, do you think, to the Trump campaign?
Well, I think one way to look at that is to look at how she got picked as vice president. Joe Biden needed someone who was far to the left of him because he was perceived as far to the right. So that tells you that her challenge is the reverse. She's so far left, she's going to have to pick someone to her right. But she's a pretty conventional and cautious Democratic politician. So I don't think she's going to do anything outside the box. I think Chuck's piece was very smart. I don't think she'll do any of it. I think she's going to pick people who are conventional Democrats who are to right of her, but it's not hard to be right of her.
Well, that could be Mark Kelly. I mean, you're describing a Mark Kelly.
I think it could be. He's a senator. She knows him. He's been pre-vetted. He'll be deemed acceptable quickly by the political class, and she is very much a political insider who will want approval from the political class.
Yeah. Let's take a look at how Republicans are starting to go after the vice president. This is an ad by the David McCormick campaign. Let's take a look.
Kamala Harris is inspiring and very capable. The more people get to know her, they're going to be particularly impressed by her ability.
I am prepared to get rid of the filibuster to pass a Green New Deal. There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking.
Would you ban offshore drilling?
Yes.
Abolish ICE?
Yeah.
Is that a position you agree with?
And we need to probably think about starting from scratch.
Outdated, it is wrong-headed thinking to think that the only way you're going to get communities to be safe is to put more police officers on the street.
Brad, talk a little bit about this strategy.
Well, I think this whole race comes down to Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. Arguably, Pennsylvania is the most important state. I've heard both people on both sides say it's a one-state strategy. She's uniquely poorly situated to win Pennsylvania. She's already said she'd come out and ban fracking. That's 330,000 jobs in Pennsylvania, direct and indirect. That's a big deal. She said she wants to do mandatory buybacks on guns. That's a big deal in a state where one of the highest rates of concealed carry permits. The other thing I think is a sleeper and a way for Republicans to get some Democrat votes is A lot of unions really negotiated hard for health care benefits. She said she'd eliminate private health care insurance. That's a big deal to people who are in unions, people whose parents were in unions. So anyway, I think we'll see Bob Casey and other Democrats have to wear her record.
Donna, how should she counter those inevitable attacks that have already started coming her way? And how concerned are Democrats about that?
Well, I think one of the great things that she has going for, and she knows that, is that she actually has an agenda with President Biden that she can run on, where they didn't ban fracking but got a major piece of climate legislation through, where they tried to get something, first kind of gun safety that they've had in decades under her and Joe Biden's administration. So I think she actually has the ability right now for a lot of Americans who really don't know her to define herself. And she started that in the first couple of speeches that we heard. And I think that you're going to hear more of her defining her bio so it doesn't get defined for her.
Yeah, she's running as the prosecutor against the felon. Let me play a little bit of what Democrats have been saying about Harris.
I was a courtroom prosecutor. In those roles, I took on perpetrators of all kinds. Predators who abused women, fraudsters who ripped off consumers, cheaters who broke the rules for their own gain. So hear me when I say, I know Donald Trump's type.
Marianna, clearly that is going to be her line of attack. It's clear, it's crisp, and it's very direct.
Yeah, and it's absolutely welcomed by Democrats. I mean, I've talked to so many on Capitol Hill, including those frontliner types who are always a little skittish about the top of the ticket. And they're like, yes, talk about how you were a prosecutor. Because Democrats for some time, for several years now, have been trying to push back against the Republican attacks on public safety, crime, obviously, this year. They think that having her talk about that will help them on the campaign trail. We'll see, because of course she's going to get attacked all the time by Republicans on her public safety record and you know, things that she did in the past when she was an attorney general. But it's something that Democrats are very much welcoming.
It's telling that she's trying to talk about something 20 years ago, though, instead of the last 4 years when she was in the vice president's office or when she ran for president. That's going to be a big disconnect. Republicans are going to drive it home.
Except that she connects it to her opponent, Donald Trump. And so she uses her history to connect it to what she views as a lawless former president of the United States.
And speaking of the president of the United States, a big moment for President Biden tonight. Donna, what are you going to be looking for when he addresses the nation?
Well, I think it's going to allow him an opportunity to continue to celebrate his agenda over the last 3.5 years. It's going to allow him to offer a bridge to the future that Democrats have wanted and that they now have with Kamala Harris. And I think the American people are actually looking forward to it because it allows him to make a graceful, almost exit from the stage.
Brad, what do you think?
I'm going to find it really ironic that a lot of Democrats are going to praise him and cheer him tonight, the same people who are trying to run him out of the job last week. And politics is a pretty brutal business. And so I don't think it's going to be a very eventful night for him. I think the big moment for Joe Biden was Sunday.
Well, and it was. I mean, he sort of, even though we were anticipating it, I think a lot of people were stunned when they saw it in black and white that here he had decided to actually drop out of the race. I think, Marianna, it will be fascinating to see how much he gives us a window into how he came to this decision.
That's exactly what I'm watching for. I mean, during the campaign trail in 2020, when I covered him, he would talk about being that bridge. Now he's in that moment where he is giving that moment up. And, you know, just talking to Democrats who literally have gotten emotional thinking about these last couple of days, supporters of him, they're very fearful that he could really internalize this and take it negatively and, like, have resentments in the future and moving forward with the party. And this will be a window, to your point, Kristen, of, you know, is he going to be that empathetic character, not just to people like we have known him to be with voters, but is he going to have some empathy for himself? And I think that'll be very telling tonight.
Well, I think for people who've known Joe Biden, though, I think the expectation is that, in fact, he is going to be that empathetic leader.
Well, we'll be watching. Thank you all. Really appreciate a great conversation, Marianna, Donna, and Brad.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.